leaving out?
I'm leaving out Notre Dame because I've seen in the playoffs projections where they place value on a conference champion. And that's the exact same reason the Big 12 got left out last year. It would be the exact same reason this year. They've stated it. They place value, not just on the champion, the fact that that's an undefeated champion. They'd be left out.
I'm actually leaving the Big 12 champ out.
You would?
I would. I think if Notre Dame runs the table and goes undefeated, I think the back half of their schedule is going to look very solid. I think what hurt the Big 12 more so than having a split championship was not having a championship game.
You like that?
Wow.
Oh, of course, Brian Kelly has no problem with a one-loss team making the playoffs over an undefeated
I don't have an issue.
Hey, if Iowa were to beat Ohio State in the championship game and be undefeated and be the Big 10 champion, they're in.
They're definitely in.
Okay. If the Big 12 comes out undefeated through that round-robin gauntlet, just one of them, they're in. Stanford would have beaten them, and they're in. Clemson, now you're between Clemson, Stanford, and Alabama.
But here's the interesting thing.
Notre Dame's odd man looking in.
Here's the interesting thing, though, is that the Big 12 and Notre Dame have something in common. They don't have conference championship games. Big 12 can win you can win the conference, but not having that championship game.
Yeah.
However, Notre Dame idled that last week, which could be an issue for them as well.
Idle that last week, and also think about what those teams are going through at the end. We have a tremendous amount of respect for those three teams, okay? Baylor, Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma, and they're all playing each other. So if one of those comes through unscathed, in.
Now, part of the selection committee, I do want to put this up here. When we were part of the mock
disclaimer for your what-if game?
Selection. No, listen to this. The selection process guidelines. Providing enough flexibility and discretion to select a non-champion or independent under circumstances where that particular non-champion or independent is unequivocally one of the 4 best teams in the country. So essentially what that says is the conference championship is a tiebreaker. If it's close, the advantage goes to the conference champion. So Notre Dame is at a severe disadvantage unless they are unequivocally better than if it's Baylor, the undefeated champ. Do you think they could, in any scenario, be unequivocally better than an undefeated Baylor?
No.
I do.
You do?
I do. Baylor is all offense to me.
Don't care if they get to that schedule,
I
though.
think
they can beat Oklahoma.
We'll see how
they can beat Oklahoma State.
We'll have to
TCU.
see how they look doing it.
Yeah. We'll see.
Plus, what kind of representation does Notre Dame have on the committee? Who's that independent voice in the room?
There isn't.
Conference championships certainly paramount. We saw that last year. We will probably.
What if we go to?
Next, we'll take a look at Ohio State. Ohio State has had a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde season, particularly on offense. Quarterback situation still not completely resolved in Week 11, which is kind of interesting. Did you see that coming?
Sketchy. No, I did not. I thought that would be resolved in training camp.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I've got them in kind of on the high end of somewhat, though. When JT Barrett is behind center, they do a pretty good job on offense. Have some confidence against Michigan State for them. Michigan, though, looking better this quickly under Jim Harbaugh than I expected. And with rivalry games, you kind of have to throw the records out the window.
You do. I still think that the talent level they have, there's no excuse for them to be in question in victories, and we've done that all season long. At some point in time, I have to believe Urban Meyer, I would move them just a touch. We've put a lot of faith into Michigan because of Harbaugh, not necessarily because of just the play on the field. They are quicker to the punch this year than I thought they would be, but they're losing football games. So I'm going to stick with Ohio State right there. I don't think they're losing a game.
Okay. Well, next let's do Baylor. Why don't you pick that one up? How confident are you in Baylor?
Not very confident, actually. They still don't play great defense. The whole Big 12 doesn't play great defense. Look at that schedule. Oklahoma, TCU, Oklahoma State. I don't think, personally, any of those teams are getting through the gauntlet undefeated. Add in the true freshman aspect of it, and the fact they don't play great defense, I'm going to put them over there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little lower than that, too. You know, the back end of their schedule is what we were looking forward to seeing in terms of what we have to see in Baylor. It's definitely a bit of a gauntlet, and I don't see them going through undefeated. Next, let's take a look at another Big 12 team, Oklahoma State.
And for the different reasons, I have them as a low confidence meter, not because of a quarterback situation. They're one of the few teams I've seen actually massage that 2-quarterback system pretty well. But the gauntlet they have, the whole Big 12 in general, getting through each other at the end in this Oklahoma State, TCU, Baylor round-robin thing, I don't see any team going undefeated through it. Oklahoma State looks great right there with Oklahoma, but I just don't think they're going to go through it unscathed.
Right. I actually agree with you, and for that very reason, I'm actually going to put Oklahoma State in low. And it's not a knock against Oklahoma State or Baylor. It's just that gauntlet that they've backloaded on their schedule. I don't see any of them getting through it undefeated. Let's take a look at Iowa next.
Iowa's, like, when you think about it, they shouldn't lose a game until they get to the Big Ten championship. Minnesota, Purdue, Nebraska. You're looking at the FPI, index on what they think they should. There's just the way they played. Now is not the time to stub their toe. I don't think they will. Just right about there with Ohio State. I don't see them losing any football games. I
actually, since we're only talking about the regular season at this point, before the Big Ten championship game,
because if you did that,
I'm actually going to put higher confidence in Iowa to run the table than Ohio State at this point. I just don't see anyone beating them until that Big Ten championship
game.
That
schedule they have isn't exactly daunting.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at Houston. When I look at Houston, they've definitely impressed a lot sooner under first-year head coach Tom Herman than I thought they would. They look great. For that very reason, I'm going to put them in somewhat. Between Memphis and Navy, I think they're going to have a little bit more trouble than they've had so far this season. I'm not sure that they're going to get through both of those games unscathed. They look great, but I have to keep them in somewhat.
Based on the schedule they have, they look great. Based on what I saw with Navy and Memphis, I thought highly of Memphis. They beat Ole Miss, and I saw Navy run all over Memphis. And defensively, Navy stepped up very well against that offense for Memphis. I'm going to say they're similar. The AAC is like the Big 12 in the fact this round robin, they've got them all playing at the end. When you have these three teams, playing so well, I don't think they're all getting through unscathed. Houston's right there with them. I don't know if they get by Memphis this week. So, look good, but we'll see.
So we've broken down our confidence in the chances for the 6 unbeaten staying that way. But what does ESPN's Football Power Index say? FPI gives Clemson the best chance to enter bowl season without a loss. The Big Ten champ has a 43% chance of entering the playoff without a loss, with Ohio State garnering the majority of that support. And the big number is 27%, the chance that FPI gives both Houston and the Big 12 champion to finish without a loss. Saturday on ESPN, we've got 2 big games with players.
Corey Coleman. This is a human highlight reel. What he does on the football field is spectacular. He's only 5'11", 190, but his athleticism is off the charts. From his speed, his change of direction, his leaping ability just to go up and get the football. He can turn a 5-yard hitch into a 50-yard touchdown like that. Has the ability to make guys miss like nobody else in college football. And what he's trying to do right now, become the NCAA single-season touchdown leader. He's got 20 right now with 4 regular season games and a bowl game. Just needs 7 more to catch Troy Edwards. It's unbelievable what he's doing. 7 straight games with 2+ touchdowns. This guy's tremendous. Just a week ago, 11 grabs, 216, and 2 touchdowns. And if he can do what he did against Oklahoma last year, where he had career highs, 15 catches, 224 yards, and a touchdown, this guy has got to be at the very top of most Heisman Trophy ballots. This game is going to be tremendous, going to be awesome, and these 2 guys right here in the spotlight have their chance to make their case for why they should get an invite to New York City in December, fellas.
Look at is what we've done big games prior to this. We've been in a bunch of big games since 2010, really. And, we've done pretty well in our share of them. So you kind of look at past failures and productions and, try to pull on the productions more than the other.
And, being able to run and protect the quarterback will be a big issue. They got some really good players there. And, Oakman, of course, comes to everyone's mind initially. But there's all the other guys they have really, are playing well. So it'll be critical that offensively, for sure, that we can, not only run block but protect the quarterback as well.
I'm with you. Laughable. It's a joke. I don't get it. Where's the logic in it? I mean, there's no consistency in what this committee tells us. And for a guy who played in the Big 12, and I really appreciate and love this league, there is zero respect from this committee, and it feels like nationally, for the Big 12 right now. They're talked about and treated almost as a mid-major. When you look at it, Oklahoma State, they talk strength of schedule, right? Oklahoma State, the 53rd best strength of schedule. And I'd say they got a heck of a win against a really good TCU team who's won 16 straight football games. Now, Iowa moves ahead of them. They're number 5. Iowa's got the 63rd best strength of schedule, not a win near what Oklahoma State does. How about Ohio State? They're number 3. They must have played somebody. No. Strength of schedule at 73. What's the committee tell us? But they have players. We know what's in them. They just haven't played their best football. I even heard them reference Stanford making excuses for them playing 11 o'clock when it's 9 o'clock their time. I don't know what this committee's doing anymore. The one thing I do know, there is a lack of respect for the Big 12 football right now. I don't appreciate it. I think it's weak. Hopefully this whole thing sorts itself out, but for right now, I got to tell you, it feels like Crazyville, and Jeff Long, he's the mayor.
Oklahoma brushed off a puzzling loss to Texas a few weeks ago, and its offense has really been clicking. Baker Mayfield, the transfer from Texas Tech, is the number 2 rated passer in the country. But now he's got to go on the road and face a very good Baylor team. More importantly, this is a Baylor team that has had Oklahoma's number in recent years. It's going to be up to Mike Stoops, the Sooners defensive coordinator, whose defense is playing at a very high level, to come up with some answers for that Baylor offense. If not, Jarrett Stidham, that freshman quarterback, and especially Corey Coleman, a Heisman candidate at receiver, they're going to have another big day, and I think they will. I think Baylor ends up pulling away from Oklahoma.
We talk about the eye test, though. I mean, when you look at Iowa, is Iowa passing this eye test?
Well, listen, they apply the eye test when they want to apply the eye test.
That's right.
That's the thing to remember here. I mean, I think it's good. I think when you have coaches on the committee that know the sport, they've coached, they know who can rush the passer, they know who can cover the pass, it's good to have their expertise in that room. I think it's outstanding. They watch tape like a coach would. But the problem I have with it, Brad, is it seems like they're applying the eye test selectively. Case in point, Ohio State hasn't beaten anybody. They haven't played anybody. I believe, without a doubt, Ohio State is one of the best 4 teams in college football. But if you look just at their resume, what they've done to this point, and I'll go a step further. You take Ohio State's name off the nameplate right now and put anybody else up there, Michigan State, Northwestern, Wisconsin, no way Ohio State's in the top 4 right now.
If you look at the graphic that was just up there, and you could see those numbers, that they explain why Notre Dame is at number 4, and they explain why Iowa is ahead of Baylor. But to your point, Chris, I think you could question, why is Ohio State ahead of Baylor? Because neither one of them has a significant win. Now, look, Ohio State did try to schedule someone in the non-conference. They couldn't help it that Virginia Tech was not as good as they had been, certainly as good as they were at the time that game was originally scheduled. So they at least made an effort to schedule a challenging non-conference game. But in the end, they haven't played anybody who's any good. Baylor hasn't played anybody who's any good. But at least Baylor has dominated almost every game. You can't say that for Ohio State. So I do think that there are a lot of questions that aren't really being asked about why are the Buckeyes ranked as highly as they are.
Corral, 2 gunslingers, the veteran, Baker Mayfield and his Sooners prepare to square off against the youngster, Jarrett Stidham, who has the upper hand in this Big 12 showdown. Atlanta Beaver Ball Hokies will honor their head coach tonight with a helmet sticker when they take to Grant Field to tackle the Jackets. You can see that game on ESPN. Syracuse, Dabo Swinney on his decision to name long snapper Jim Brown captain for the Tigers game against the Orange in the Carrier Dome.
Going to Syracuse, and Jim Brown's going to be the captain. He's going to lead the Tigers into
and again, close, not so much for the Cardinal, but Notre Dame, Iowa, and Baylor all really close. Baylor coming out on top this week with 32% of the vote. Robert, you agree Baylor right now, before they play Oklahoma
Right now,
on
before
Saturday,
they play Oklahoma.
Should they be in that 4th spot?
No, absolutely not. And I think it's because of what Notre Dame has done up to this point, beating Georgia Tech, beating USC, beating Navy. For me, Notre Dame belongs in that 4th spot for now.
And their one loss, too, to Clemson, pretty darn as good a loss as anybody else.
I judge people more by their wins than by their losses.
That's a winning attitude.
I'm looking at those 4, and I'm thinking we need a new hashtag. Let's try this again. Oklahoma State. Look, you can be really good and not have played anybody all at the same time. And that's what Oklahoma State has been, I think, up to the TCU game. And then they dismantled TCU. And you can say what you want about the injuries on TCU's defense, but that TCU offense, led by a Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback in Trevon Boykin, the Oklahoma State defense basically shut them down according to TCU's standards. So now they have that big win over a highly ranked and well-respected team. They've got that resume point, and I think that should have elevated Oklahoma State to number 4.
Shut them down.
Scored like 640
yards scoreboard.
No, they
scoreboard. Where on the scoreboard do they put the
But they
yards?
turned the ball over 4 times. That's 2 weeks in a row that the Oklahoma State has relied on the other team turning over the ball. That's why I'm not there.
Oh, I see. The defense is not on the field when the offense turns it over. Is that right?
It's not.
There's no forced
It's not
turnover.
just about what these teams. Or you're trying to say that it's about the potential. And as far as potential goes, I think Oklahoma's better than Oklahoma State.
It was. See, now in terms of potential, maybe you're right. But in terms of what they've done so far, in terms of what they've done, it was potential up until TCU. Now they've got that resume point. Who's better than TCU that Notre Dame has beaten?
Yeah, but Oklahoma State doesn't deserve to be ahead of Notre Dame.
Why?
Just because they beat Texas Tech and TCU?
No, because they beat TCU. Who's better on Notre Dame's schedule that they've beaten that should elevate them above the win of Oklahoma State over TCU?
USC.
USC. Everybody beats USC this year.
Well, TCU would have lost to Texas Tech if it wasn't for a last-second catch.
The one win, the win over TCU might be better, but Oklahoma or Notre Dame has 2 or 3 wins that are better than any of the 2 or 3 wins that
2 or 3 pretty
Oklahoma
good
State
wins.
has yet.
2 or 3 pretty good wins should trump one awesome win. Now that's a good debate. I'll take the awesome win.
Good win at home.
No, that's an awesome win.
TCU is an awesome win?
TCU is an awesome win.
We'll talk more about the Big 12 here coming up a little bit later on in the show. Hopefully, we'll have some time.
Live is brought to you by Taco Bell's new Steak Boss Wraps.
You're going to want to be a part of this one. Saturday morning, 9 a.m., game day, built by the Home Depot, live from Waco, Texas, as we all get set for Oklahoma and Baylor that night on ABC. Game day, of course, on ESPN and the Watch ESPN app. You're going to be there. Interestingly enough, too, when you talk about some of the teams that Baylor have put up 60 points on, the Lamars of the world, the SMUs, this is a tough defense, toughest defense they've faced all year. Can Stidham put up points against this Oklahoma D?
He can, but not as many because Oklahoma can get after the passer without blitzing, and they're deep in the secondary. That's a problem for an offense like Baylor.
Yeah, and Zach Sanchez, their best defensive player, is going to be back. The bigger issue for me, for Baylor, trying to stop Oklahoma, is the way that the run game has started to develop with Mixon and P. Ryan. Lincoln Riley, the new offensive coordinator, doing a much better job getting that run game going.
Yeah.
Control the clock. Keep that offense on the sideline.
Mixon being that sort of the thunder and lightning with P. right now. He catches the ball out of the backfield very effectively. If Oklahoma State wins and Oklahoma wins, it could set up an interesting bedlam later on down the road. We got a lot of time to talk about that, though, in the weeks to come.
Bedlam.